Water Services Board of Directors this day, Tuesday, April 29th. We are now on the agenda section to discuss the development of the plan to restore public trust. We have the full complement of commissioners. Commissioner Snyder is just returning. This is Chair Catherine Harrington with Vice Chair Commissioner Treese. This is Chair Catherine Harrington with Vice Chair Director Treese, Director Willie, Director Fye, and Director Snyder. Okay, so we're here with our Chief Executive Officer, Diane Taniguchi-Dennis, and wishing to hear from her about the development of a plan to restore public trust. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, and good morning, Board of Clean Water Services. So today we're going to talk about an update to the actions that we have taken to the requirements to set forth in the Clean Water Services Resolution in Ordinance 5, so you can see our progress and update, as well as to discuss the framework for developing the plan to restore public trust. As this presentation proceeds, there's going to be questions for the board that if you have additional questions or additional information that is needed. But I wanted to start off saying that Clean Water Services is committed to infusing transparency and accountability to all of our actions. And as CEO, I'm committed to this so that we are an innovative governmental unit. There are many actions that we must do to achieve this, and we're dedicated to achieve it to the highest standards, just like we do for the regulatory compliance and all of the actions that we need for running of this utility and to be protective of the Tualatin River and its watershed. We need to improve our practices and policies so that we can restore public trust and to be able to make the improvements every single day. So as you recall, on April 8th, the Clean Water Services Board of Directors adopted CWS Resolution 2025, and this is an update on the specific actions that have been taken to date related to this R&O. On item 1, the fiscal and performance audit of travel and meals by the district for the last 3 years.
I'm out for a second. Have you've sent these slides to the board clerk?
Yes.
Okay. We've just not seen them in advance, so okay.
Yeah, and this is really to help with the public's
the discussion. Okay.
Yeah, it's to help the discussion so the public can see what's even more what's in the report. So it's to be managed by the General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer to provide the findings to the board as soon as reasonably practicable. So legal is already working in progress to contract with an outside auditor, and I believe it's Brad Anderson.
Brad's on point, and he'll get back to us in terms of when we should expect that.
Correct.
So for full disclosure, it was assigned to General Counsel Chief Compliance, which would be me, but probably any of the medical.
Yeah.
Yes. On item 2, the monthly reporting on executive management team expenses to be comprehensively reviewed by the finance department and reports to be provided to the chief compliance officer with quarterly reports to the board. So Kathy and the team were focused on the budget, and now the budget prep is well on its way. They're going to be starting it this month.
So this month being April or this month being May?
May. Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yeah. So,
when is the board going to be getting a quarterly report?
So I'm
not going to wait 3 months.
Correct. So what I believe they should report on is going back to the R&O requirement for meals and refreshments. We brought that in on January 1st, so they should do January, February, March to right away.
Yes.
Then April, May, June. So they'll get into a cycle. Yes.
The other thing is I want us, the board, to have process and structure in place.
Okay.
I don't want to return to the days where CWS just sends us reports and it lands in our inbox and somehow we magically create hours in the days and weeks. We need to know in advance when things are going to be coming. They need to be delivered to us. We need to have the means to know that they've been delivered to us, and then we need the time to sync up on them together.
And it's important through transparency and accountability to make this available.
I hear you say that, but since April 9th, process and structure has been a mystery to me. Okay, I need, as one of 5 on this board, for more proactive communication.
On item 3, the district to evaluate the travel, employee travel approval process and develop written guidelines. So that's currently in process. So we're reviewing all of our existing procedures and protocols, and we'll bring that back to the board.
Okay, so related to this, you and I have previously talked about needing to set up a monthly business meeting and regular CWS work sessions, and all that process and structure needs to be in place by July 1st. No, not okay. We already said that, already set the baseline for that. I need to see action on your part to get that stuff set up.
I understand.
Okay.
On item 4, district travel and training policy FA 103 to be revised in the manner described in Exhibit A with an effective date of May 1st to allow the employee training to better describe appropriate travel expenditures. So the policy hasn't been adopted, it's been transmitted to the team, and training is starting.
So here's where I've come to appreciate that a level of report back is needed to us. There's a certain type of training that is needed for credential maintenance. There is also another class of travel and training that is related to our participation, the agency's participation in industry associations, both at a work group level and a technical level, as well as at a spokesperson kind of level. And I think we need to see the outlines of that. But we also find ourselves in the position where, since the beginning of April, there's been really earlier into the year, there's been a lack of communication, or I've been left wanting with communication, and now we're seeing line items in budget, but all just a high level roll up. There is travel and training that is very appropriate for this agency to continue having. I want us as a board of directors, as well as with the budget committee, to have a framework. And I shouldn't have to create that framework.
We'll provide that to the budget committee. Yeah. So
we've received some supplemental memos from Kathy related to the budget. I need to have the confidence that all 3 documents that were provided to us are publicly available, as well as those supplemental documents. And soon we should be provided with a draft agenda for what that meeting day plan is, because I'm wondering, given the need of this R&O, if we're going to need to have some visibility in the budget committee so that our budget committee colleagues can see that we are taking action.
And just following along with item 5 there, I have felt like
we haven't moved to that one yet, have we?
I thought we were on that.
Okay, I lost.
We're on 4 or 5.
we're on 4.
Okay, never mind then. I'll wait till 5.
They're
Okay.
connected.
They're connected.
They're the same policy.
Great. Well, why don't we transition
Yeah.
to number 5?
So
Thank you.
number 5 is to provide the general counsel and chief compliance officer by June 30th to see what the policies is, how they're working out, and to make any recommendations by June 30th.
Now, to me, this is particular to the culture that we've had for the last 6 years under your leadership as CEO, and really taking stock of where we're at and what do the, I'm curious as to what the employee base needs so that these policies are understood and can be continue to be put into practice. That's the desired outcome I'm looking for, is that we have a policy and folks have the opportunity of knowing what it is. I know what we do on the Washington County side, right? We have a new personnel policy. It gets posted by email to all the employees, 30 days. Everyone's instructed, if they have any questions, please talk to set number of people, and then it's done.
Yes, we can identify. So that's the same procedure. So it went out by email to the employees. And,
But we weren't CC'd on that.
okay.
And General Counsel Chief Compliance, again, I'll tee this one off to Christine Meadows in my absence when I'm gone. We can revise it as necessary to conform to the resolution and order. But to me, inherent in this question is a management directive in terms of where is the room for travel? Zero's here, a lot's over here. Where do we strike the balance? And that I would hand over to a management objective or direction from the
yes.
board. We'll just be looking at it to conform to that R&O.
Thank you for that clarity.
And we'll add that to as part of our process to ensure the board is copied on those communications.
When you say we, you mean you. You're the CEO.
Yeah, when I say we, it's
It's you. Got it.
So I want to make sure that we incorporate though in that conversation because historically the board has gone to a variety of conferences where it was important that we get at least a rudimentary understanding of what this operation says, because it's very complex and regulatory driven. So, but it's also good for us to certainly understand the industry. And so I'm hoping that incorporated in this is going to be board travel. So we put some parameters around what that looks like. And I don't know if there's a budget item for that, but I think it's important. We have budgets on the commission, and I think we should have travel budgets on with CWS as well.
and what the objectives are for the training.
Correct.
Sometimes because we talk in this language of technical, it can be almost sound like gibberish sometimes because we're looking at the technology of today as well as the technology that we're going to need down the road. And it is, I think, very informative from the board to see that technology and what the environmental compliance regulatory issues that we're facing and how technology is part of that. Plus you get to meet other elected officials that are also part of boards for utilities like ours. So yes, we'll
We've
make
had
sure.
very little success with that.
There's not many electeds where we go, and I think that's an interesting point too. But that's okay. I mean, I'll just speak for myself with WEFTEC that I've been to a couple of times. Mind-boggling to me what the industry has to do, what it does, the science to it, everything else. So it's very important, I think, for me to be able to see that and understand my position as a director.
I think it's also important to reflect what travel has been associated with the federal government in relationship to projects with Laos and that type of arrangement. So,
And why they selected water services.
Yes.
To be supportive of the WISE smart water solutions groups. Yeah. Okay, item 6 is the board for Clean Water Insurance Company to adopt a travel and training policy substantially conforming to the district's policy. So the legal team sent the FA 103 to the board of to the legal counsel of Quick. So I'll get
When was that done?
That was about 2 weeks ago, and the response back was that they would be drafting a policy, but they have not.
They haven't. What?
They have not, but the board has not voted. Yeah.
So I think what on our side, what we're looking for is a reasonable time frame by which they would take action towards that end. So the status here is underway. the request has been communicated. Okay.
Yes.
And our question is, what is the target timeframe that they're working towards any future action?
We did relay that we felt like time was important. On the quick side, as we understand it from the lawyer, they have to convene that whole board and then run the policy through it. And
Well, I'm just trying to figure out calendar quarter wise. Are they going to get it done in calendar Q2, calendar Q3, calendar Q4?
I suspect it should be done within a month.
So this will be updated and it will no longer say not yet started, correct?
Correct. It's been
That status doesn't seem accurate.
No.
From what was just stated.
Yeah, it's,
Which is what prompted my question. My question was going to be, why is that not started? Doesn't make sense.
So this
3 weeks.
slide deck will be updated with the status as of today.
item 7 is to expedite the domicile review of the captive insurance company by a third-party consultant. That's in progress and the scope of work is being developed by legal and procurement.
Do we, the district, actually do this, or does Quick do this?
The domicile review is on the Clean Water Services side.
Okay.
It could be ostensibly done, but this will be done on the Clean Water Services.
So when I see status, I want to see what the target dates are, not just activity. I want to know what outcome we're working towards.
I'd like to see that as a separate
Timeline.
column.
The timeline, okay. So the additional action that was created is to hold a public meeting to learn about the structure and use of captive insurance companies, including a general overview of domicile considerations and using a captive insurance company to manage the financial risk. And that has been scheduled for Friday, May 16th from 9 to 10:15 a.m. at the Beaverton Round Executive Suites Training Center. So that's in progress.
And one related question I have, since legal's just by default sort of putting it together, is what would be helpful for you to provide as handouts, if anything? Or I mean, we can run it just through Aon and do the training, but if there is a desire for any materials to go out ahead of time or on the website, this is this isn't necessarily legal proper work, but it would help us if I understood your expectations.
So I think we've talked about our expectations a couple of times, and we are trying to make sure that people don't get confused between this being a section about what captive insurance corporations are versus a thorough questioning and examination of what Quick is and the business doings of Quick. That latter part is not what this is all about. And so towards any handouts, whether it's an agenda or the supporting, PowerPoint or whatever, all needs to go towards the purpose of what this session is all about.
Whatever content's being covered, my strong suggestion would be that it be able to be summarized in a one-pager that can be handed out to people.
Okay.
If it can't be summarized in a one-pager, it's probably too complicated or too detailed and not the right level of information. It needs to be
Plan to have-
understandable.
I'll plan to have an executive summary prepared and available then.
And the other thing is it's important for Diane, you and all of your team members to know, based on our experience, you don't just send a whole set of hyperlinks to elected officials. They're busy people too.
So are we expected to attend this or with that?
Yes.
mandate?
I think we're
Yes,
On
it's
the calendar, it's on the calendar, it's just hold, but
yes.
all right.
Somebody on Clean Water Services needs to turn it into appropriate calendar events. That's part of the frustration that I'm dealing with.
As long as they don't ask us any hard questions, whoever's in there.
I will be happy to field the questions. Okay.
Item 8 is for the district CEO, is directed to obtain district board of directors approval in advance of nominating the representatives to serve on behalf of the managing member on the board of Clean Water Insurance Companies. Written policy is being developed. There's two pieces. There's the piece for clean water services and its risk management and policies that relates to the sole member. And there's a piece on the quick side. So it's in development and I'll get you an ETA.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So this is another item where the district meals and refreshment policy FA 106 was adopted in January, and it's going to be reviewed by the general counsel and chief compliance officer by June 30th and revised as necessary to ensure that we're curtailing executive management team meal expenditures. So that one will get started and I'll give you an ETA on that. So we'll be on target to deliver. Absent compelling circumstances such as an emergency, all local meal purchases by executive team members are not reimbursable by the district, and all executive team members shall return purchasing cards to finance if a member has one. So all team members, executive team members, directors and above have returned their purchasing cards to finance, and the card accounts have been canceled. So that item is completed. Another recommended additional action is to update FA. It's a separate policy. It's FA 101 of the purchase card policy to exclude executive staff cards to clarify the food and refreshment policy provisions within that. And to add compliance and accountability language as it relates to.
And I want to make sure we're being clear here. We're not pushing food and beverages purchases down to managerial level or anything like that, right? But it's very clear for the whole organization. There are certain circumstances per the policy where food and beverage is required and appropriate. And I think we're just trying to figure out where there's the assurance that we know that the culture is established, so it's clearly understood.
Yes.
And I'll say I'm grasping a little bit in terms of how to get acknowledgement that that is clearly understood in the work culture arena. So I would benefit from your coming back to us, either addressing it today, but giving us the reassurance that it is part of the work culture that's understood.
It is a work culture change that has been implemented, and the teams in all of the conversations that we're having with the teams, they understand that to be the case.
I was encouraged in my budget briefing conversation on Friday with the CFO and you on that front. I mean, she stated to me that she's noticing a significant change in spending already on it. In some ways, it was encouraging to know that she's seeing a change. In another way, it tells me that the culture really was what I might find to be concerning.
I'd also like to add to this with my executive experience in this realm, the piece around purchase and approval. The most senior person in the room should be the one approving, or it should be the one paying, because that means that a junior member isn't paying and a senior member approving. So I think that that's just a piece of
Internal
experience.
control that
Yeah.
should be in place.
It's important.
Is that part of the policy? I'm now forgetting.
don't know
that's
that-
part
I
of the
don't think it
policy.
is,
That's a
but-
point that I think you all should look at, because otherwise it creates the possibility of it lacks internal control when you've got a subordinate paying and then a supervisor approving it who attended the meal.
So that would be looking at internal controls here, FA 106.
With the most senior member.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Item 11, it's for the district to continue the process of coding food expenditures, in a single line item, and provide staff training as necessary. So the current practice for food expenditures is to be budgeted in object code 52495, other materials and services. So that's been completed. There's no more charging of food to projects or other things. So Kathy is auditing all of that.
I would also like to see, and this is related to the management report that we'll be getting about past expenditures. I want to make sure it's clear. We continue to have, for example, CWAC, the Clean Water Advisory Commission. They're all volunteers. They have their meetings during the week. So folks leave their normal day jobs and they come to spend a good 2-3 hours, sleeves rolled up, doing the work of the advisory commission. And so as part of that positive setup, we provide them with a meal.
Yeah.
And it's a reasonable business expense. But we have to make sure that in terms of the financial budgeting as well as the controls and actual, that proper business use is both forecasted or budgeted for and followed through on. Similarly, with certain parts of the organization responding to emergencies, all of that needs to be classified as part of the budget, forecasted, budgeted for, and then followed through on. And I just want to make sure through the budget process and whatnot, financial wise, that there is that point of clarity. I don't want us to have to endure anymore. There's just one huge big bucket and everything gets coded into. Those days are gone. That's behind us.
So we have an additional recommendation is that we create a new object code specifically for meals and refreshments to increase transparency. Okay.
But to me, this just read like a different big bucket under a different name.
Yeah.
Well, the materials and services one has other stuff in it too, right?
Correct.
That's the distinction there,
Correct. So it's of an ability to track meals and refreshments specifically.
separate from all other.
But I don't want just one of these for the whole organization, is my point.
Correct. And we can create cost accounting within object code,
Great.
and then we can provide reporting on that.
Okay.
So you can see it, what was spent on emergencies, what was spent on
Yep.
different things. So we'll get that set up as an additional action. Okay. Item 12, the finance and or chief compliance officer will reject non-compliant travel and training reimbursement requests that's been implemented. So they're actively auditing and rejecting, reviewing and correcting or rejecting.
How many have been rejected so far?
I've only seen one but it was, and the person reimbursed the district. And that was passed. We'll know more when they actually produce the report. Item 13. And I think that'll make it very visible to the board what they actually found, what they rejected and corrected.
How many more numbers and slides do we have? Because I know the board's got ideas and we want to get to that.
Okay. Let me go quicker.
No, I just asked a simple question. How many more numbers do we have?
We're on slide 8 and I have all slides.
15 items.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's 14 items on the.
So take note, everyone, the meeting's going to go longer than 12.
Okay. The district shall provide training to all district employees on compliance with laws and district policies related to expending district resources that are applicable by employee groups by August 1st. And on April 21st, all district staff members were notified of required training that finance and the legal team will be conducting in person in a team setting between May 1st and July 31st. So that's in progress. Item 14 is that the district CEO must work with the board on a plan to restore public trust of our community, customers, local government partners, employees, and the board of directors. So today we're discussing the framework and schedule.
When we'll be getting to that later?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is about the development of the plan to rebuild public trust. This is the plan schedule. We're working on developing the plan from April 30th to May 21st. The target for the plan review version 1 is at a CWS work session on June 10th, 2025. The plan, based on comments, the review plan to version 2 will be on July 18th, at a CWS work session and with plans to adopt the final plan and to be scheduled at a CWS business meeting.
I recognize this because I developed.
Correct. Yeah. I want to make sure everybody is.
So I'm looking forward to, at some point in this meeting, talking about this board, having the conversation with you. We want to hear from you, what your ideas are to include in that plan, and then get further thoughts from us.
I would just observe that this timeline, I understand why it is. I think it's not nearly, it may be as fast as we can go with the board involved. I think this is kind of like moving at the speed of government, which is probably not acceptable in this example, but I accept that we may not be able to go faster, but I want to
What would you do with that? What is your alternative?
about how to make it faster. The-
I hear you making the comment or noting that some people may think that they would like to see it sooner. I know I would like to see it sooner, but as I've said to you all multiple times before, we have the reality of the two budgets. This is the best alternative I've been able to come up with. So if you have another alternative, please share it.
Diane, how robust is your draft plan today that you have ideas for us? Like, do we think we could move this faster? Does your team or you work, you have a fairly concrete, robust plan?
We think through that and what is maybe what a potential accelerated schedule is. And the question is whether we can truncate one of the reviews, right? Review of the plan. But we're on target to deliver something on June 10th. So it's how many iterations we need forward.
I think we'll find out the answer to your question after we get through with this and we have the conversation.
I agree. I just think it's important to acknowledge the timeline is long.
So what we're recognizing that the communication and engagement with our customers, employees, and partner cities and the board has to be continuous throughout this. So the plan itself is really the longer range plan. There's actions that are being implemented and have been implemented since the start of this. So part of the review is going to be looking at the communications plan as we go through this entire schedule, but also the elements that we're doing to do the business improvements.
That to me is a total black hole right now.
You need to see it. It needs to be visible.
Yes,
Mhm.
I did not appreciate that a work product landed in my inbox on Monday morning while I was in all kinds of Washington County Board of Commissioner meetings, and I was not provided with any heads up that something was coming. It also didn't hit the mark.
Yeah.
That needs to change.
So
I would second that, Diane. I think we need a bit of a heads up. Some memos. You know, while we're having a cultural change internally with CWS, board involvement is also changing culturally in that we're having more visibility to a lot of products that are coming from clean water services. And it would require a little, not that you need to hold our hand, but there needs to be a bit of a recognition that, you know, you need to call and say, this dropped in your inbox. Because I think that work is being done by the chair right now. So we need a little bit of a call, texting to say, you know, please, if you have a question, let me know. Just that from you or the chief of staff, you know, not necessarily if you're busy, but anybody from Clean Water Services needs to have a bit of more engagement and involvement with the board's inboxes in terms of our visibility, what you're dropping in our inboxes.
So these are the early actions that are underway right now. So the principles that we've been using is we're taking responsibility for the situation. We're committed to addressing the concerns directly. We need to provide transparent information and communication. We have to demonstrate accountability. We're continuing to foster CWS's trust-centered workplace culture. We're learning from this experience and we're improving, and we're building insights from the needs of our customers, employees, partner cities, elected officials, and board. So the early actions in support of this has been the proactive implementation of the actions in RNO 25. We need to be able to respond to the public records requests, and the legal team is doing that. We need to communicate about our corrective actions. So we have managed the Clean Water Services website. So now it's on the front page under Engage and Learn of our commitment for this, and also all of the links to the board meetings. We have a brand new board page. We're rapidly trying to make sure we're having our public meetings covered with the appropriate minutes and agendas posted as well as noticed.
What kind of transparency items are you planning to, like, as that builds out? I think that may be in part, maybe not entirely, but in part from a discussion and suggestions I may have made. What do you plan? What is your vision 6 months from now? If someone wanted to say, I want to see what transparency means on this situation that started with media attention, has resulted in board of directors action. What do you see in 6 months on that page?
Yes, so it is all of the actions we have done to date and all the actions we're planning to do to date. So it's going out and talking with the public. So we have events that are already been scheduled with the public. The team is getting really good feedback. There is a high level of base trust within the region about the work that we do. They want to see us change. They want to see us be accountable. So we're getting all of that feedback. We do have stakeholder insights that talked about what it is that Clean Water Services needs to do in the region. So we're going to be preparing that and bringing it to the board, and that's all part of the plan. So in 6 months, we would have had a plan adopted and we would be moving through it. So it's a page they can go to.
I mean, I'd like to see every public records request that's been made related to this overall situation, all the responsive materials to them so anyone can look at them. Like, I think from a transparency perspective, I would like to see robust transparency on that front. And if the work's already been done to identify them, getting them online should not take a lot of effort.
Work with legal on that.
Christina. Wait a second. I've heard that request from one board member. We have to advise
Just
as
suggesting
one
what I'd like to
board
see.
majority. So I don't want to just hear you saying yes to every idea from 5 different members. We've tried to make sure that we speak as a board and set board direction. So I think one good starting point is we need to make sure I'm familiar with what the public records process is for Washington County. We've heard here today the public records process is it goes to legal. That's all I've heard. We, I think, are looking for a little bit more than that. We understand that there are Oregon public records process expectations, and we just want to have a level of appreciation for what those are. We also would benefit from understanding the scale of public records requests right now. And some of this can just be be communicated to us through internal communication or a memo.
Let me take this issue under advisement and put together an analysis for you and a recommendation.
I guess I just want to be clear. What I think I'm doing is providing feedback to the CEO about a plan that she may or may not act on depending on her perspective. I don't feel like I guess I want to be clear about what we're each doing here. I think that's what we're doing, not providing direction that says, when I speak, this is what the 5 board members are saying.
I'm clear on that.
Okay.
So if I could just drop back one time. I stopped at take responsible for the situation.
What does that look like? Yeah.
The situation has changed significantly from the first media report, in my mind. We have now looked at travel and entertainment and meals and those kinds of things, adopted a resolution and order and things like that. But there's been a number of other things that have evolved beyond that. A strategic plan for leadership would be one. And dealing with Quick and CWI and how does this all come together as a big package. So to me, the situation as it originally started has significantly broadened. And I want to make sure that I guess we're dealing with now the situation as it's been amplified.
So I think, wait, if I could step back for a second to make sure that we brought full context forward for this work session. Diane, we know that we have worked with you over the years on the organizational direction, and we've seen organizational change both in terms of policies and practices, but also personnel. We've had retirements of a few key folks. We've had some departures. And I think where we as your board are at now is we both have the situation of media coverage and we have uncertainty about how things are moving forward. And it is impacting our ability to see that we are taking appropriate steps to restore public trust. Okay. And so that's why we're looking for more than just words on the page. We're looking to understand what action are you actually taking, which relative to the strategic plan for leadership, I think one of the things that we are identifying is we're looking to know that there is both immediate leadership and then longer term leadership. And you know, we need to understand the skills and abilities of the current work team. And that isn't something that's called out in the RNO, but through the experience of where we find ourselves, we're as a board left with questions there. So I think we need to identify that as a topic for future board engagement with you. On Quick, we've had information about, you know, why Quick was set up. We find ourselves in this situation of not being party to all the materials of Quick as is appropriate. And we know that through this, the RNO, that there's certain actions already identified for moving forward. CWI, that was identified years ago as something that needed to transition. And we understand that there is some near-term work to be done for that to transition. That needs to be part of your work set to this board. Okay. So I think I've addressed the three things, Commissioner Willie, if you could sit back for a second. Commissioner Willie, that you were bringing forward. Correct. What I'm hearing is that she's captured those on the list and using the vocabulary we've developed as a board of commissioners, the CEO will start setting that up to come back to the board in our engagements moving forward.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes,
I'd like to make a comment on this slide, and not knowing what your future slides are, this may be covered. But what I haven't seen here is looking for outside advice and counsel, and not legal counsel, but advice from the industry as a whole. For example, I'm aware of Moonshot Mission and who they are and much of what they do is related to drinking water, but nonetheless, they've been addressing some sanitary situations as well. Could we benefit from advice from that type of group as well in relationship to the steps that we're taking?
Could you articulate that from the standpoint of what business need you're trying to address?
I'm talking about a consultant that addresses crisis management in this type of situation. In other words, looking at these early actions, is there something else that we, from an insulated standpoint, are not looking at? So I think that there is an opportunity to look outside the world of clean water services and for advice. And I'm not saying to adjust the R&O, but to address the R&O.
So your point, your business need is under this label of crisis management.
Under
I'm still not clear in terms of what problem are you trying to solve?
how we are taking responsibility for the situation, how we are demonstrating accountability. Are we only looking to ourselves for the answers to those questions? Or are we taking advice at a broader level?
For
And
this,
that's just an example. I could go through the whole list here.
for the CEO's benefit, I want to be clear too that from my perspective, the R&O is like the base level of what needs to be done. You as the leader of the organization may either make recommendations or take actions that are bolder and more aggressive. And I frankly would like to see that from a leadership perspective. And that applies also to this plan that to restore the public trust. So I don't think you should feel like you're limited to,
I think we're all in agreement on that.
I hope so.
Okay.
So, any other questions?
If we go back to that last slide, then, Diane, this situation is impacting both customers and employees. How do you intend to find out what the satisfaction level is and the impact that's had internally, both internally and externally? What's your game plan to understand that situation?
Thank you for that question. So I've been meeting with all of the groups and they've been providing feedback, and I was going to synthesize that in a report to the board. As it relates to the food and et cetera, and travel, they understand the situation that we're in and they want to change. And the executives I have taken accountability for that. They understand they're in a governmental unit. This is that culture shift. So there's actions that I'm personally taking to make sure that different teams have access to me. They've said that they needed it. So I'm adjusting some of my work locations. But the team is feeling very confident that the board supports the hard work that they do to attain compliance. And they understand that Clean Water Services needs to change. And they're all 100% supportive of that. So we do I foster a culture where they can talk to me very directly, and that's what they've been doing. And they appreciate that. So that's continuing on in this next few weeks to come. So what I'll do is I'll summarize all of the other actions that are being taken so there's more transparency for the board.
So let me be clear. I don't want just more documents I have to read. I need you to take ownership for getting the board business meeting set up at least once a month as of July 1. I need regular CWS work sessions set up. I need you to have a tool in place, similar, but in CWS board management appropriateness, to capture the combination that we use on the Washington County side as the rolling agenda and the roundtable plan. I need to know what the cadence is of the CWS constituent reports. There's a reason why we get them on Fridays for Washington County and not haphazardly different days of the week. We need to have confidence that constituent follow-up is sound. I can't speak for what Commissioner Fye was getting to about impact customers. I do know that there is room for improvement in terms of billing as well as rate setting. And I want to see what your plan is to advance clean water services information set on that. I myself, and I've encouraged my colleagues to send our water bills to your staff, but I haven't heard anything back in terms of when are we going to see sample water bills so that it's available for the public to explain why folks in the urban unincorporated areas who are TVWD customers as well as local sewer customers for CWS, why their bills look different than my bill from the city of Beaverton, which will look different than Commissioner Willie's bill for city of Hillsborough. I want to make sure that moving forward that I think I know this already, but there have been past practices around CWS business meetings where there have been some external parties and their spousal units, and that's not acceptable. And I want to see some more specificity. I'm seeing a lot of words here, but I have no idea. It says actions, but these are just themes, you know, descriptive goals.
They're broad, broad
Yeah.
categories.
And we're at a point where this week is the month of May. It's been a month, and I want to see more specificity on action. I also want to come back to a problem that I highlighted in February. What are the organization's goals for this year? Whether it's fiscal year or calendar year, I don't care. But as CEO, I expect you to be able to articulate, here are the goals that we have with regard to compliance for our permit. Here are the goals we have in terms of ensuring that we have plants, physical infrastructure that continues to do its job 365. Here's what we're doing, continue to maintain and advance our workforce culture. You've had the Baldrige Performance Excellence Plan in place for years to put in process as we've had workforce change. I would like to understand what is the state that you're in now and what are you working towards for the next state? We are looking also for clarity in terms of what are the resources to help us do our job as directors. And I'm still left wanting. But it goes back to some of these things that I've asked for.
I'd like us to control the narrative externally. As much as the media likes to write the story, I'd like us to make sure that rewrite the story, because it's not like some of the reporting has been fully accurate. So I think it's up to us to make the external communications and that we write the story.
Lead the storytelling.
Yeah. I don't know what our comms department's doing. I don't even know who's in our comms department. So I think that might be important as well, that we know who the heck is supposed to be communicating.
I'd like to get clarity on, question the chair posed about the July and August work session. Who's the point person for that? So you're working on this thing.
So for those work sessions, I'm the point person with the team.
Yeah.
So it's the items that they're going to be presenting as part of the plan. So it sounds like I will get more explicit information out as we're developing the plan. So I do have a comms plan that I can share with the board. It's in development. It's a little long, so both for
That
short.
agenda will help along.
I like a point that Commissioner Willie raised around the storytelling, not necessarily the point from the media perspective, but telling our own story. And one component that will contribute to that is, the bullet point, I don't remember the number it was, around reimbursements and training requests that's been rejected. If we can have a comparison to say, in the past, we've received this many and this many has been approved, but since we've implemented this policy, this has been the impact to reduce, and why why did we reject that story of why? Because now we're being fiscally responsible, accountable to how we make decisions, and be a bit more thoughtful in ratepayers' money. So I think that story will go a long way to demonstrate that we are being accountable to the public. And then, as uncomfortable as this question I'm going to ask you it is, there's been a lot of frustration in the public and a lot of questions about the leadership at the clean water services level. You've been a stellar leader. You've have not had any problems with your performance. Are you the leader for clean water services as this situation unfolds?
I believe that I'm the leader to get this team and the board through this next phase. There's a lot of technical issues that are at stake with the West Basin Master Plan and the East Basin Master Plan, and getting through all of the rate setting and financial planning for that. As you know, I've retired, and it was a signal to the organization that I'm going to be retiring. So as part of the organizational plan and the knowledge and the skills of the existing team for the board to understand. So there needs to be a succession plan for
I'd like to clarify something though. You have retired from PERS.
PERS, correct?
You haven't actually retired from your job as CEO.
Correct.
You
What
were under contract. as-
Correct.
What is the timeline of the phasing you just described from your perspective?
From my perspective, it's important that we have stability. My recommendation to the board would be to go to an executive search starting next July. It's going to take this board a while to find candidates.
So July 2026.
July of 2026. I want to get the team through this fiscal year, and I'm committed to stay until you find that next candidate and find someone. It's going to take someone nationwide, likely, that has the full breadth. I think in me, you have not only an engineer that's a professional engineer and is board certified, you have someone with an MBA, you have someone who has 40 years of experience in utilities, everything from a design of a wastewater and water treatment plant all the way through formation of financial plans and SPCs and rates. So it's going to take someone that has that breadth, because working on this Tuolumne River is not easy. Making sure that we could provide the facilities that are necessary to develop the strategies to manage the industrial as well as residential and commercial, but the industrial waste is complicated, and their expansion and what it is that the Tuolumne River needs. I want to make sure that the board has a well-versed executive that understands that.
So Diana,
into
I'll
the
just
future.
comment that it may be that the agency is continuing to perform well towards its permit and construction and whatnot, but your interactions and communication with this board has fallen off since early last fall. and you need to take ownership for that and turn that ship around. Okay. We need to have more conversations, but it's not more conversations. We need to have clarity through our meetings around the state of the organization and how it's moving forward. Okay. We have gotten feedback from city partners that have raised questions about rate setting. We've made mention of that in our conversation here already. We've also had questions around billing, and currently we have joint billing. And so one thing that I believe we are expecting in a forward plan is scoping out what independent billing involves and what that would entail. Now, it's hidden in your prior slide through a bunch of those words talking about city partners. That's a clear example to me of where action detail from you is absent. And I cannot afford to see another work week go by without clarity from you. What I am left wanting is looking at the workload that is on the board for CWS and Washington County. I don't see how we can come back to this whole laundry list of things before June 10th. If there is some way, then we can use our problem solving in our work sessions to try and zero in on that date. But I am not going to be run ragged by you or your team trying to explore different dates and what if scenarios.
I'd like to make the comment, or you?
I'm done.
Okay. Thank you for this presentation. I appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioner Fye, for your questions, for Jason, your Commissioner Director Snyder, and you as well, Director Willie. And thank you for what you've been saying. I am concerned, and I'm not comfortable with the level of action that when I look at it at a 35,000 foot level. And what I mean by that is I don't see what I would characterize as bold actions. I don't see the organization standing out, and you, frankly, Diane, as the leader, standing out and telling this story, whether it's a regular letter from the CEO, whatever it is. I'm concerned, very concerned about that. I'm concerned that I haven't heard a strong message from you. You've mentioned it here about the public records requests coming from Quick. That's something that is in my inbox every single day. And I don't see that underscored here like I think it should be. I think that your comment about the executive search, I'm concerned if we were to start in June of 26, if it would take a year, we're in June of 27, and that's a long time out without doing the bench building behind that we need to do as well. I talked earlier about this group called Moonshot Mission that does consulting work with groups like ours. I would like to see a conversation with them about the availability of executives. We have collectively said, gee, this is going to be really hard to replace. This is a unique position, but I don't know that we're just not looking within our bubble here. And that's what I'm going to say one more time. I think we need to look outside of our bubble. The other piece that I didn't see on here, and I will be talking about in our budget conversations, is the setting of affordable rates in relationship to regaining public trust. I think that's an important piece. I understand that we've done some research on this. I would like to see us push that forward. And it certainly would be a conversation that I'd have with fellow directors and budget committee in relationship to the future. But nonetheless, on my list, I think that helps us build public trust as well. So in closing here, I think that I'd like to see us be more proactive and more bold. I think that we need to examine what our opportunities are for executive leadership across the board. I don't feel like that's part of this plan at all. And that starts at the top and moves down to the second bench and potentially the third bench. And as Chair mentioned earlier, when I look at the turnover in SAGE, it's almost 100% turnover.
Executives, yes.
Yes, and that's unacceptable for our leadership plan moving forward. So that's something that I think that we desperately need to make sure that we're looking outside of this region, that we are reflective and taking advantage of experiences that we've had nationally and internationally to look for the leadership that backs
That
that.
definitely has a nexus to restoring public trust.
Yes.
In a way that I hadn't directly thought about, but I appreciate you pointing that out.
So with that, again, I appreciate the work that's being done by you and by staff, but I stand behind my fellow directors in relationship to the questions and the needs that they have put forward.
And if I could follow up on what you were talking about, is succession planning. We need to do that sooner than later, Diane. There's going to be at least 2 commissioners, 2 of your directors that are not going to be here in 27. We need to begin this transition before that, and also just because I don't know if something would happen to you today, the old hit by the bus theory, who would run the organization?
I think you're supposed to add God forbid.
Okay, God forbid.
Or
I don't know who would run the organization, Diane, as from a expertise standpoint. I mean, we've got Carolyn, we've got Kathy, we've got Elizabeth, but not at your level and not at your expertise in the industry.
And we've been talking about this for years.
So, I'm going to, in our conversations, highly recommend we start that process this summer. And because we've got to move ahead on this at a much faster pace.
So what that entails is we as a board are going to want contract and budget support to secure a search firm to work with us, to work on job descriptions and early job descriptions to then go from there. So we'll have to figure out the work plan related to that a little bit more. That'll go on the list.
Okay.
I'm concerned that we have questions as highlighted, particularly by our city partners, who I really appreciate the work that Tualatin City Manager Sherilyn Lombos, long time city rep to CWAC, put into the city manager response that we've all seen from the CWAC meeting. Very thoughtfully done, but it highlights 2 areas of improvement. One, well, before I get to those 2, IGA status with all the cities. We need that to be clarified for us. But also on both rate setting and billing. We've touched on this a little bit, but it's in the context of the budget. I'm losing confidence here that one day for the CWS budget meeting is going to get everything done. So I think leaving this work session today, you and your staff are going to have to figure out how to put a hold for at least a subsequent half day for CWS meeting, budget meeting number 2 between May 9th and the June 17th adoption date. We may not get the budget approved on May 9th, and you need to have a plan B.
I agree with that. I'm concerned about the number of questions, not only that I have, but I know that Pam's submitted. I'm assuming you both have submitted a bunch of questions too. I don't even know between now and May 9th how we're going to get those answers back. So I would completely agree with you. We need to plan for a second.
Well, we've been told we need to get our questions in no later than May 5th.
I think many of them have been submitted.
I'm not done typing mine up, Commissioner Willie, or
Okay.
Director Willie, okay?
You're not alone, Sharon.
I've got my first
And with
half.
the amount of problem solving that I'm being asked to consult on, I mean, I've got my cell phone for Washington County blowing up on things too. So it's a little hard to do both of the jobs right now. So I'm.
I'll be the third thumbs up for the second day. You need a board approval for that to move forward. I think it's a great idea and gives us more room to have a robust discussion. I think it's inevitable. The second day.
Okay, anything more with regard to today?
Thank you for listening to us.
Is there anything more you wanted to share in closing?
We have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And we'll pull it together. It sounds like we need more specificity on this bottom arrow. There's a lot in action. We need to make sure the board is.
Yeah, this arrow by itself is not cutting it.
Yeah, I understand. It's a plan. We have that in works, so. Is the best. I'll leave it for now. And I'll talk to the board later. Okay. It's process right now that I'm thinking through.
Well, let me ask you, what venues are you going to take advantage of? You only get us convened as your board a few times in the weeks ahead. May 6th, May 13th, and then the 27th. That's in advance of this next scheduled one. Will you be looking to bring, if you're looking for us to give you feedback on any thoughtful questions, we're going to need those in advance versus you're just waiting till work session to ask us a question.
Correct. So I have scheduled one-on-ones with each board member. I'm very conscious I do not create serial meetings, but I have a plan that I'll be working through and taking a look at as a draft. And we'll be able to have that ready well before that June 10th work session.
Okay, I thought I was hearing something different from you, but that's okay. Okay. Anything else for today, folks? I think we've covered a lot of territory. Thank very much our team members for helping us go through the executive session as well as this conversation as well. And I'll ask for a motion.
To adjourn.
Second. All those in favor, please vote. Okay, we are hereby adjourned. Thank you. We don't usually do that for work session, but it seems